Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 320.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because we are going to talk about something that, dare I say, some of you listening right now, if you are brave enough, you are going to be able to make some money within the next, 7 days. That might actually be generous. It might not even take you that long. And more importantly, you already have a lot of the resources you need in order to execute it. And today's guest is going to help you see that very thing. Many of you have heard of places like Uber. You've heard of sites like Airbnb. You've heard of things going around and you're like, okay, how can I participate? How does this affect real estate? And today's guest is going to help you enlighten yourself into the possibilities because she's done exactly that. Imagine having had over 1,000, that's one with 3 zeros, positive reviews, meaning at least 1,000 people have stayed in one of your properties or a property you control or with you and enjoyed it. And then getting paid for it and using it as a platform to be able to free yourself from your 9-to-5. I think you're going to learn a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be one of those times where you're going to want to take lots of notes. So help me welcome Miss Sue Hoyuela. Sue, how you doing?
Fantastic, Jay. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad that you are here. So I'm going to ask you, though, a question that I tend to ask everybody the first time that they are here. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Go ahead. Okay.
I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, you got Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, Black Widow. You get the idea. But I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. Chief among them, occasionally we get dressed up, and we go out and we use our special skills and abilities, observations, etc., to help other people with their problems, etc. And I also think, just like, superheroes, entrepreneurs have a beginning. For example, if you think about Spider-Man, before he was Spider-Man, he was kind of just taking photos, doing his own thing at the newspaper. So my question to you is, before the 1,000 positive reviews, before Airbnb came into existence, before you were out there in the short-term rental market, we want to know, who is Sue Hoyuela?
Okay. Wow. That's really cool. I love painting the picture. I was just flashing back to my mild-mannered loan processing previous self.
Your alter ego. Right.
Sitting
I like
at
it.
a desk, working out of a trailer, processing loans to my heart's content back in 2008 when the real estate business was booming.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Times were good. But I had glasses and I wore a suit and high heels and I was in a freezing cold air-conditioned box and working 12 to 16 hours a day, at least 6 days a week because it was my own business. So, you
Right.
get to enjoy the money, but you also have to give your heart and soul to it.
Yep. I can imagine. And where was that your first entrepreneurial journey?
Well, actually, I've been a serial entrepreneur all my life.
Okay.
The dream of having the time freedom and the money freedom to do what I want was always in my heart. And I've always tried other things all along the way, trying to find that right business that was just going to be the key to opening the floodgates of financial freedom. And I've struggled for at least 30 years trying to find it until along came Airbnb.
What were some of the other things that you've tried in the past?
Well, multi-level marketing was kind of fun. We
Okay.
did Primerica, Ale Williams. That's dating myself, sorry.
Wow, that's a while ago. Okay, all right. Many people
Going
don't
way
know
back.
they don't know the A.L. Williams days, but okay, keep going.
Ooh, okay, we could just keep it at Primerica. Tried starting my own business. I had a fantastic idea for a scarf with a cell phone pocket for women who didn't want to have to carry a purse or
Huh.
out on the dance floor. That just didn't take off as well. Just a lot of different ideas, great ideas that were going to change the world that just never quite panned out, no matter how much effort and sweat and capital I put into them. And then Airbnb came along and was just effortless. And it was the
Effortless.
one. And I was so excited. I was like, everybody has to know about this. This is the key. This is the low-hanging fruit. This is the way to financial freedom that you can get started even if you have a couch. So the barrier to entry is very, very low.
This is true. This is true. Now, interesting. I got an interesting question, or at least I think it's interesting. Would you, having all the prior experience, would you have been able to recognize the opportunity without all the other things you had gone through previously?
I'm thinking about that one. That's deep. We are the sum of our experiences. So I have to say, yes, on a level, all of the things that we learn along the way about, I guess mostly what doesn't work, eventually it helps to guide you towards the right things that do work. But to be honest, at the time when we first, heard about this mysterious website saying, "Oh, list a room for rent and they will come," we were like a little dubious, to say, "Okay, we're going to put this listing out there. Who's going to see this?
Right.
Who's going to want to come to the suburbs of LA?" So at the time, it didn't seem like, "Oh, yes, this is it." But I don't know what you say, the planets aligned. I mean, the timing was perfect. Airbnb started in 2008 and we discovered it in 2011, right when it was kind of hitting that hockey stick of growth of awareness between supply and demand. And we just rode the wave to where it is today, which I think it's hitting a new hockey stick of growth.
Right.
But it was a good time to get started, to be one of the first adopters.
Indeed, indeed. Now, for those who might not know, do us a favor and share with us what is Airbnb.
Okay, yeah, it's amazing. Airbnb started in 2008, and it's a great story if you have a chance to go on the internet and Google how it began, because it was three guys and they wanted to go to a convention. I believe it was in San Francisco, and all of the hotels in town were booked solid. They couldn't find a place to stay. And one of the guys said to the other, "Man, right now I'm so desperate for a place, I'd sleep on an airbed on somebody's living room floor." And that's how the idea began of being able to allow people that have some extra space in their room, apartment, house, and list it on a website that somebody needing a place to stay could find and pay them and stay, similar to a hotel, but in someone's personal house. So that was how the basic concept
Mm-hmm.
began.
Mm-hmm.
In the early days, it was a little rocky. They had a little trouble getting traction until, again, another crazy idea. They decided to promote it with some different types of cereals that they came up with, Obama O's and something. It was during the Obama administration when he was running for office, and that was what helped kick the awareness up to the level where it caught on, and then it just took off like wildfire from there.
Now, interestingly enough, okay, so that's '08. You said you discovered in 2011. So how did you discover, what led you to go, one, look for an opportunity, and then two, go, you know what, let's give this a try?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was definitely the turning point in my life, because being on the front lines when the real estate bubble burst in 2008 and our loan processing business essentially dried up overnight, my husband and I, he was a real estate agent, we were working together, and we looked at each other, this deer in the headlights look, like, okay, I think this real estate bubble just burst in our face. What do we do? And we said, well, real estate, the market goes in cycles and boom to bust. So clearly we're at the bust. Well, we'll just hold on until the boom comes back. So we stayed trying to do real estate for 2 more years. And in that time, we went through all of our savings. We lost a few properties, and we went deep into credit card debt until we had to wave the white flag. And we said, no, it's not coming back soon enough. We have to go back and get real jobs. And that was the soul-sucking moment to give up our freedom and have to go back to work for a boss. So we wound up going to work in a bottle decorating factory, and I became the customer care manager. My husband was the plant manager. And one day, as fate would have it, one of our vendors came in and sat in my office, and he started telling me about a duplex that they owned in Hollywood and this hobby that his wife had of renting out half to vacationing guests. And then he says, and the money I make and the money she makes covers our whole mortgage. And that made me say, wait a minute, stop, go back.
Right. The proverbial record scratch. Like, what?
Right? And so when he says, yeah, she uses this website, it's called Airbnb. I said, well, that sounds interesting. So I went home and I told my husband that night, hey, honey, I have this idea. What if we try listing one of our rooms on this crazy website and see if anybody wants to stay in a cabin? Well, it's a shed, but we, called it the cozy cabin in our backyard in the suburbs of LA, 26 miles from where people want to be. And at the time, it didn't sound like it was going to really take off. But he says, right now we just need to find a way to make an extra $100 a month to put towards our debt because we've got to pay this off. That was our primary motivation, trying to pay off our $63,000 in debt we'd racked up, and looking for a way to make an extra $100. And so we listed the cozy cabin and had our first guest within 7 days. And we had a continuous, steady flow of guests from that point on. And it amazed us. And at the end of the month, we hadn't made an extra $100. We'd made an extra $1,000 to put towards our debt. So we had gone from trying to find ways to earn an extra $100 by coupon clipping and recycling aluminum cans and selling things on Craigslist to all of a sudden this Airbnb thing just boom.
Right.
So that's when we started really exploring the ways you can use Airbnb and really blowing it up.
Indeed, indeed. Now, before we go too deep into that, I just want to underscore a couple of things for those that were listening. Is, just because you may be in a situation in which you don't like, i.e., working in a bottle decorating factory, never even thought about that. That doesn't mean you can't have your ears open for opportunity, because clearly you did. You had your ears open for opportunity. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to hear exactly what was being said. I am curious though. So since, that vendor who introduced you, have you taken him out to dinner at all?
Yes. I had to go running back to him and say, you changed my life. And I was hugging him and crying, and it was beautiful. Yeah, it was a pretty special moment, because that was just one of those, God moments that the right person walks in and you're listening, trying to find a way to make extra $100 is kind of where my radar was. And, you're open to anything at that point, and the right person shows up, and it's just kind of amazing.
Now, let's talk about some of the logistics that you just said, because this I find very, very interesting. You said suburb of LA, 26 miles, and you're just trying to maybe get $100, and you've got we'll call it the cozy cabin in your backyard, and you're like, okay, maybe we can get $100 out of this. But when you realize at the end of that first month that it's $1,000, what kind of goes through your head?
Well, it's really cool, actually, because my husband, after 30 years of marriage and being married to a serial entrepreneur, every time I've come to him with the words, "Honey, I have an idea." He's strong, man. He's hanging in. So, when I came to him with this Airbnb idea, he just simply folded his arms, smiled, and looked at me and, sort of gave me that, "Okay, we'll try it, but show me the money" look.
Right.
And after that first month, after $1,000, he comes to me and he says, "Honey, how about we change your laundry room into an Airbnb?"
Yes.
So now Mr. Show Me the Money is coming up with ideas himself and he's on board and we're like, all right. So that was a good turning point. So out came the washer and dryer and in went a full-size bed. And that was about it because it was a very small little room.
Right. Right.
And yeah, we just took it from there and we just started blowing it up with adding more and more rooms.
Well,
go ahead.
No. Well, I think that's one of the unique things about the way that you've chosen to approach the strategy of how to provide space is where myself and others, I know I like the whole idea of, the whole house, for a particular type of person or a particular customer. You started, I mean, in my head, even though we've done this, it still sounds, it's like, hold on. Having someone in my same living space that is still. I've got 4 kids. That feels like more than enough people in my living space already. So it's the idea of another person is just like mind blowing. But this is where you have been able to specialize and make things happen. Was there ever that conversation between you and your husband, like? You do realize we don't know this person and they're coming over tonight, right?
Actually, I guess we didn't have to have that conversation because prior to that, we had hosted international students with a local college, and they would come here to learn English for maybe anywhere from 3 weeks to 9 months. So we were used to having folks from all around the world stay with us, and our kids actually grew up in this environment of always having some international person at the dinner table.
Oh,
And it was a pretty cool experience for them to always be exposed to different cultures and different languages and different foods and just learning to appreciate, how people can be so different, but all still be so much the same and just become such close friends, and it's a wonderful, wonderful experience to meet people and share what you have, and then they share back. And one of the things I say in my listings is, you're welcome to use my kitchen as long as you make enough food for everyone.
right. You can't just make cake for yourself. Yeah.
Right. And it's great that people take me up on it. And we've had all kinds of awesome different foods from all these different countries, things you'd never imagine. And they're so delicious. And it's a really awesome experience. Sometimes I feel like I'm the guest. They get carried away with cooking and hosting me. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is awesome. So it's actually been an amazing positive experience having these quote unquote strangers in my house. One of the things though that Airbnb does is they've got their review system built in, and that is the key that makes it work, because this is a really cool thing to be able to stay with locals in their home in a foreign country, as far as, from a guest standpoint. It's a privilege. So knowing that they're going to be reviewed at the end of the stay means that how they behave is going to make or break whether they get to keep using Airbnb.
Right.
And that keeps them on their best behavior.
Right.
So we haven't had bad experiences with guests. They're always so considerate, should I take my shoes off before I come in, and they're just really, really respectful and appreciative and just so sweet. And I say that our guests leave footprints on our hearts because of the people that we've met. It's just been a mind-blowing journey that we never would have gotten to experience if it weren't for Airbnb.
Indeed. So let's talk about this though. Okay, so you're starting, that first month ends. You end up with $1,000 more. Suddenly, husband's like, okay, let's convert. We're going to convert each room in this house. Let's go. We'll live in the lawn if we have to in order to make this work. How long does it take you now to stop doing the job, or what you call it, the soul sucking employment. I was like, wow, that's descriptive. So how long does it take to leave that behind and move on? What does that growth or expansion process look like for you?
Yeah, I don't know if soul sucking was too strong of a word, but I guess from being self-employed to having to go back into slavery for a boss who says you're 2 minutes late coming back from lunch, you're like, oh God, that it was my primary goal to get free again too. So after Airbnb came along, we started with the cabin, then we added the the laundry room. My kids moved out and went to college a couple of months later, and that freed up 2 more rooms. So after having 4 rooms being rented on Airbnb, it was about 6 months into it that I looked at the finances and I realized that this Airbnb thing was generating the same amount of money that I was making in my full-time job. And I looked at it and I said, but wait a minute. It's only taking me about 10 hours a month to manage this little bed and breakfast. And I was doing all the cleaning myself and just answering the inquiries, and working, doing it from my office, answering them through the app on the phone and stuff. But my full-time manager job was taking me like 60 hours a week, and you don't get overtime. You know how that is when you're a manager. So I came to my husband and I said, honey, I have an idea. I'd like to quit my job.
Here's another okay.
Here go the crossed arms again.
Right.
And I said, really, I could show you the money. Trust me, if I would to free myself up and just have to work 10 hours a month to keep that money coming in that I've been making as a manager, but now I'm doing it as a Airbnb host, what could I do with the rest of my time? So that would have been a scary thought for most. But I went ahead and my husband said, okay, but we're gonna just save our paychecks for about 3 months just to be sure this is viable, because you think, well, this is a vacation rental and we don't have summer year round. Well, sort of in LA we do. But
yes, we do. Tell the truth.
Yeah. Okay.
It's awesome all the time. Sorry for those of you listening to this while it's snowing.
Exactly. No remorse. Anyways, but yes, we live in a paradise and we just happen to be lucky that way. So we wanted to make sure that there was going to be steady year-round income that we can count on and not just seasonal. So we started by hiding my checks, and after 3 more months, I didn't have to touch them. The money from Airbnb was steady, and that was the point where we decided, okay, I'm going to take the plunge. So after 9 months, I was able to quit my full-time job and dive into Airbnb full-time, and I started expanding and growing it and exploring all the different ways you can use Airbnb, and I came up with 6 different business models to date.
Got it. Well, and this is good because I love the progress. You're hearing how you're going from one to more, and you've got an expansion plan. What 2 things I kind of want to dig into. One is how do you go? Because it sounds like the first 4 rooms were all inside your house. And so I'm like, all right, well, how do you expand beyond that? Because I'm sure that's a question some people who think larger are thinking like, okay, great. But once I'm out of space in my own home, or if I don't want to use my home, what do I do? But which I believe will run into actually my second question of, you mentioned 6 different business models. What are they? One of the best things that I've found to be about real estate is the fact that there are so many different ways to quote unquote skin the cat. And what does that mean? That means that same single family house can be used in so many different ways. And today you're hearing different ways. So let me give you some ideas of what I mean. A single family house could easily be rented out to a person on a monthly, or a family on a monthly basis, right? We're used to that. But that same single-family house could become an assisted living facility. That same single-family house could become a movie set. That same single-family house, well, as you're hearing today, can have many other uses as well. So one of the things I want you to go out there and do today is think about how many different ways the deal you think you're looking at could actually be used. Like if you are in one of those markets where it's tough to cash flow, get a little creative on the income. And if you want some more ideas on how to get creative on that income, Go over to cashflowdiary.com/free book. Again, cashflowdiary.com/free book. Pick up a copy of Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. Now, let's get back to Sue and let's find out what those business models were.
Well, after we used up every
square foot
of space in our own home.
You can only buy so many sheds and put them outside. I understand.
Right? Oh, my goodness. But yeah, so then we definitely needed to look beyond. So the next thing we did was rent other people's property. We didn't want to go out and buy tons of houses and stuff. So we just started by renting people's property and doing the same business model, which I call the bed and breakfast model, which is where you rent the individual rooms to people. I find that that's a lot more lucrative. It's every room becomes a little profit center. So we started with another 4-bedroom, what was it? I'm sorry, 5-bedroom, 3-bath house.
Got it.
And put some on-site hosts to greet the guests and manage it for us. And then from there, we started branching out and offering reservation management services to people who liked the idea of making money with Airbnb, but just didn't have the time to manage it. So we did the reservations and said, here comes your guest, catch. And they would do the cleaning and the greeting. So that's been wonderful. And then we even discovered that you can do this with timeshares. So many people have timeshares that they're not using and may have never used, and they just get tired of paying those dues year after year for something they're not even using. Well, if you rent out your deeded week on Airbnb, you can make that money back to cover your dues and put extra cash in your pocket.
Got it. So instead of so if they've got a week or 2 weeks or whatever, that during that week they just make that week available on the site so that someone else could come in, and you're saying that more than makes up for the fees that they would normally be paying?
Absolutely. Yes.
So 1 week equals more than the year's worth of maintenance and fees that they're normally paying.
Yep.
Somebody just got excited. I don't know who they are, but hopefully they're learning. They're like, okay, I've got to pay attention to this stuff here. Yes, that's exactly correct. So your strategy then, because let's talk more about this idea, because I know many people have tons and tons of questions. So you said you would lease other people's real estate and then rent out individual rooms in a on-site host, so like a on-site property manager or something?
Yeah, we call them our property caretakers.
Caretakers, okay.
Yeah, and so they live on site in the house, and they take care of making sure that the common areas are clean, and they greet the guests and give them the little orientation, show them to their rooms. And then, they're there for questions, because one of the reasons people like to travel with Airbnb is they get that local knowledge, and they like to, find out about all the inside things and the hot spots and how to get discounts. So the property caretakers would provide that as well to the guests, that value add. And then that would reflect on our reputation as well, because it was all under one Airbnb account.
Interesting. And you paid people to do that? That's cool.
Well, actually, they paid me.
No. The property caretaker paid? Okay, I got confused. I thought so the property caretaker paid you to be there?
How cool is that?
Yeah, that's new.
Aha moment. Okay.
I'm like, what? I'm learning things in real time. Why would someone? Because I've got it now, and otherwise I'm going to get a bunch of emails. Like, why would someone pay you to be there? I don't understand. To welcome the guests and clean the common areas and stuff. Why would they do that?
Why would they do that? Well, as real estate investors, a lot of people are pretty familiar with the concept of negotiation.
Yes.
What we do is we find responsible young couples who are maybe living in an uncomfortable situation. So, for example, a young couple who had been married about 3 years, both going to college. He was out of the military, getting his degree, and they were both working full-time, staying in an apartment that was costing them $1,000 a month, and it had no air conditioning. And so I said, how would you like to come and live in our mini mansion
Ah.
and just pay $750 a month in exchange for greeting the guests and keeping the common areas clean, because it's your house after all. You do clean your house, don't you? Right? So that's normal. And then as you're living in the house, paying a reduced rent, you would have the opportunity to reduce your rent even further if you chose to take on the duties of cleaning the rooms in between guests and collecting that income rather than us paying some cleaners. And you can provide private tours to the guests or airport transfers and charge them whatever you like for those services, so that eventually, if you really want to work it, you can live rent-free. So that would be the opportunity I would put before them.
Sue,
Mm-hmm.
you just made somebody smile. I don't know who, but I can hear, I know they're smiling, and I think right now we might have even just earned a review for the podcast, because they're like, oh my God, great ideas here. That is amazing. I love it when stuff like this comes out in the middle of an interview, and I get to learn and everybody gets to learn along with it. Here's the point, though. You just recognized opportunity and started solving problem. You had a problem because with a, what you call it, mini mansion, you are no one is no longer there on site. So you had to figure out a creative way to do that, and you solved somebody else's problem, i.e., living probably in a space that they would rather not live in. Maybe just, the idea of saving, hey, you can save some money and still do these types of things. So I think that's amazing, what you've managed to put together there. So
Thank you.
At one point, what would you say then, how many of these listings and rooms do you currently today? So you start out with, the one, then you kick out your washer and dryer, then you kick out your kids, and now you're expanding. How big does this get?
As big as you want. I've also developed systems and automation along the way, so that now it's pretty much unlimited growth to be able to manage it however large I want it to go and however far I want it to go. It can be done in other countries. You just have to have the systems in place to manage it. Currently, I've got, I think 11 listings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 properties.
You had to count. I love how you're counting. That was great.
Because when you're renting the individual rooms, and then some of them you can do multiple listings. There's a lot of different aspects to it. So it varies.
Yes.
But it's always in a constant growth mode. So yeah, it's just very exciting and very fun. It's kind of addicting after a while. Talk about addiction factor. I say that Airbnb is like potato chips. You can't have just one.
I know, right? No, you can't. That is very true. So with that being said, though, let's talk about the other side. I mean, there's a number of people out there who, they don't necessarily like it. They blame the short-term, these companies, Airbnb, HomeAway, Flipkey, what have you, for causing issues in their own neighborhoods or raising rents and all these other things. What say you to such things like that?
Oh, thank you for asking. I mean, I respect their point of view, definitely, because we've been blessed with the grouchiest neighbors on the planet. And
Nice.
yeah, it's been wonderful. They've taught us so much, and we've been able to all get along. And I attribute that to putting the responsibility on the host to manage their guests.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned how to communicate with the guests to limit the annoyance factor to the neighbors, as far as parking goes, as far as check-in goes, as far as noise goes. Those are usually the 3 main areas that the problems tend to revolve around, and it can all be solved with, hosts managing their guests properly through deep communication. And Airbnb gives you all the tools to do that. There are no excuses. So one of the things that I also think of in terms of, so many people are just trying to stop Airbnb completely. and they're banning it. They're saying it's
Mm-hmm.
illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And it just reminds me of the Prohibition era when they said
Yeah.
alcohol is bad. It should be illegal. But at that time, I mean, there was so much demand to consume it and to sell it that it only um, succeeded in driving it underground. And it didn't really make it go away. And then they finally decided to just make it legal and then tax it so that everybody could keep moving forward. And um, one of the things that they would say during Prohibition was that alcohol was dangerous and, in the wrong hands being used, not responsibly, it was dangerous. But it's really hard to say that about Airbnb and people staying in your home. It's not a danger to the neighbors. Yes, it's annoying sometimes, but we can't go as far as saying it's a danger. But one of the things that I find interesting is in the city of Los Angeles, they've been going back and forth and trying to ban it or limit the number of days that you can have people stay in your home, either in individual rooms or a whole house. And they passed it to go on to be voted on November 8th. At the same time, the city of LA approached Airbnb and sat down at the table with them, and they said, would you collect the occupancy tax for us automatically from every booking in our city and just remit it directly to us? And Airbnb said, sure, no problem, absolutely. So on August 1st, it went into effect. Now, any guests staying in LA, in addition to the normal rent and the cleaning fee, they're going to see the charge for occupancy tax included among the fees. And it's already just automatically collected by Airbnb and paid directly to the city without ever bothering the host. And the guests are happy to pay it, so it's not slowing down demand. And now the city is seeing, an income, a bump in their revenue of maybe $5 million because of this. So now the city has a vested interest in Airbnb continuing, and it's a win-win situation for everybody. And I would just be on my soapbox promoting it to hosts to be better managers of your guests and more respectful of your neighbors. And this could just go forward smoothly. And they just came out with an article too about it's not really a threat to hotels in any way, which I kind of knew all along because so many people have no interest in staying someone else's house. They're like, give me a hotel any day, So I just see this as kind of like the Wild West right now, and we're working it out and we're moving forward. And if you jump in now, you're going to make a ton of money. And if you wait until they've gotten all of the laws and permits and taxes all worked out and legalized, that's fine too. But in the meantime, we can all make a ton of money. And even once it gets more streamlined, I guess you'd say, I'm sure we'll all be able to still make a ton of money anyways.
Yeah.
So there's never a bad time to jump in.
Well, I like where you're putting the responsibility, to be honest. And in my experience, that I would agree with you is that a lot of the, we'll say, stories that people have heard are things that can be mitigated, that you, and to some degree, it's your first time trying to manage a property or people. You've never done that before. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't know people would be this way. Well, welcome to people.
Yeah. The hospitality business.
Yeah, people, there's, somebody's got to be on the news. So, it happens. But I like the fact that you put the onus on the host, because again, that means there's something that we can do. There's something that can be done to help, educate and how to manage how to manage other guests and people and property in and of itself. Would you say that your prior experience with your rentals before, Airbnb has helped you in any way, shape, or form?
Well, actually, all of my rental properties were in other states, and I had property managers doing it all for me. So I
gotcha.
actually had no prior experience.
Good. Well, that's kind of what I'm trying to understand is because some people might go, well, I don't know how they could be afraid of what you just said, managing and communicating to guests and people that are paying. They've not done it before. And they're like, that could be the very thing that's stopping them from moving forward. But what you're saying is that there shouldn't be a reason to let that stop you. But I'm assuming there's still a learning curve. Yes.
Yes, there is a lot to learn, and that's where 5 years of experience have gotten to me, gotten me to the point of writing a book and creating an online course to help people to navigate all of that. And Airbnb is a very robust booking engine. They have provided so many tools to help hosts and guests communicate and make the whole process smooth just from beginning to end. But it's become such a powerful tool over the years because Airbnb is now worth something like $30 billion, and they're constantly improving and putting more and more into it, listening to the people, giving them the tools they need to be successful, that it's become kind of a monster of a program to learn to operate. And but once you understand how to use all of the tools that they give you, it makes it very easy to avoid all of those, headaches being on the news and to just make it all flow very smoothly.
Indeed, indeed. So with that being said, I know that there's a number of people, we've probably piqued a number of people in their interest in this whole idea of a different way of using even their own rental properties or apartment buildings. And you hear these stories of people converting buses and all kinds of stuff into places to stay. For those that would want to, Sue, find out more that you do have to offer and more that you have to teach and learn, what's going to be their best next step in order to get in contact with you and or just learn more?
Well, I would invite them to go to my website and get a copy of my free ebook. The website is called doubleyourrentalincome.com. And the ebook is called The Secrets to Making a Six-Figure Income with Airbnb. And that would be a great way to get started.
Okay, so by default, then you're saying a six-figure income is actually possible. It's not just a $100 here or $1,000 a month.
Oh my goodness, it is so possible. That was the mind-blowing realization that my husband and I had when we looked at the money that was coming in from this. We were just amazed. I mean, when we first started out, we thought, well, if we rent a room in our house, what can we get? And, we're in the suburbs. It was like, $500 a month maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But when we started renting by the night for, what was it, $50 a night?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which that's dirt cheap, right? Because we're not where people want to be. And
no.
$50 for a hotel is ridiculous. So all we had to do was charge $50 a night, and we were making $1,500 on the same room. So it tripled our rental income. And when we started applying the vacation rental model to other properties and whole houses and everything, we found that formula to stay true and consistent, that we continually got triple the income that we were earning before. And so I just kind of wanted to say, the name of my website is Double Your Rental Income, because I like to underpromise and overdeliver.
Nice. I like it. I like it a lot. And that's been very, very true. So as we wind down here, I have a final question for you, if you will. There's a number of people who have been considering real estate. They've been thinking about it for a long time. Or we'll just say that they're standing in front of the superhero outfit store and wondering, should I, shouldn't I? They're thinking, what kind of cape do I want to wear? What kind of superhero do I want to be? And yet, Sue, as they go out there, they hear your story. They've heard mine. They've heard all the entrepreneurs that we've had on before. And for whatever reason, they still have that voice in the back of their head. And I know you know that voice because you've done battle with that voice. It's that voice that comes up anytime we are trying to become bigger, better, badder, more than our present place. That voice that reminds us of who we're not sometimes. And for some people, they're even related to that voice. So let's pretend for a second that the person listening is actually going to follow through on the advice that you are about to give. And they're going to do so within the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest they do?
Wow, that's a powerful question. I love it. Well, as I was picturing them standing in front of the store looking for their superhero outfit, I wanted them to envision themselves taking off their landlord cape because for some, when they've gotten into real estate, that was not it didn't it didn't deliver what they expected. Maybe they had too many problems with tenants, maybe there were just too many repairs to make, I don't know what. It didn't pan out the way they expected. And they've gotten frustrated with trying to make real estate work for them, or the market's just not right, there aren't any opportunities anymore, or they've been trying to flip property and you just can't get the return on investment that you used to. But with Airbnb, the opportunities are all around you. So if you start to look through your Airbnb filtered sunglasses, you can see these opportunities now in a different way, things that wouldn't make sense for other strategies. And I would say go to the store, get your short term rental automation master cape and put that on, and get your Airbnb filtered sunglasses and put those on and start looking for opportunity, because I believe that you can create your world the way you want it to be. And for everybody, that's different. But just to share my perspective, I guess, when somebody said, "Oh, you can create your world the way you want it to be," and I laughed and I said, "Okay, I want to get paid to go to the beach." And so, I find myself at the beach now accepting reservations on my cell phone and going, "Hey, check that out." So under my cape is a bathing suit and a pareu, because um, that's the world I've created, that once living in this vacation rental Airbnb world, it I'm literally living like I'm on vacation every day. And I mean, not just in LA, because we have beautiful beaches and summer year round, but we just got back from Cancun and I went to Hawaii this summer. So it's created the lifestyle that I've always wanted. And I believe it can do that for other people too. So I just challenge them to put on that short-term rental automation master cape, get their Airbnb filtered sunglasses, and create their world they want the way they want it to be with real estate and this higher and better use using Airbnb.
Excellent. Well said. And I definitely appreciate your perspective on houses, whether that's the whole house, the small house, the prior landlords. You're giving a lot for a number of people to consider. And I think they will. I think we got their attention, and we'll see soon. But I definitely appreciate you taking the time to invest your knowledge, your experience, and expertise here with us at the Cashflow Diary.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope that it's changing people's lives right here and now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? Well, I think you should go to doubleyourrentalincome.com. Why? Because you know, like I know, that the job you have is a job you don't want to have for most of you. And yet, you heard something today that was possibly different, possibly hopeful, and you're like, man, can I really? Well, one of the best next steps for you to do is to take some measurable action towards it. Get the book, but don't just get the book, read the book. And don't just read the book, do what it says, because once you follow that process, you begin to see new things come into your life. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I definitely look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.